Right. Hi, everybody. My name is Elaine Kinsella. I'm Assistant Dean for Research here in the Faculty of Education and Health Sciences. So you're all very welcome. It's lovely to have you all here. This is our very final lecture of the Knowledge with Impact series. So I'm delighted to be here. It's great to have you all here today. So as we come to the end of the academic year, we're delighted to close the series with two thought-provoking talks that reflect the diversity and depth of impactful research across our faculty. Our first speaker is Dr. Antonio Calderon, an associate professor in the Department of Physical Education and Sports Sciences here at UL. So Antonio is the course director for the Professional Master of Education, Physical Education, and chair of the Sports Pedagogy Research Group. His lecture, Breaking the Silo, Creative and Research-Driven Pathways to Impact Teachers' Pedagogy, will explore how innovative, research-informed approaches can transform teaching practice, curriculum and assessment in physical education. Our second speaker is Dr. Sybil Dwyer from the School of Allied Health. Sybil is a neurodiversity specialist with experience in teacher and healthcare education in both Ireland and the UK. Her talk, Why Are You Always Boring On About Justice?, challenges us to think about the importance of social justice in the training of neurodiversity specialist practitioners, drawing on her own research and her lived experience. Thank you both for sharing your work with us today. And thank you to all who've supported the Knowledge with Impact lecture series this year. And particular thanks to Sinead Liston, who has supported, organised and done lots and lots of work behind the scenes, not just this academic year, but the previous academic year as well. So thank you, Sinead. So now please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Dr. Antonio Calderon.
So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Elaine, for this kind of introduction. And I think this series, this is a very important space to have, because we can have reflection, we can disseminate some ideas, and that I think that's what is important in terms of when we are talking about research impact, isn't it? And in particular for breaking the silo, which is an argument that I would like to make. So my own name, as Elaine said, is Antonio Calderon, and I am a member of the Sport Pedagogy Research Group in PESS. And let me use this space just to celebrate the impact of this research group had over the years, in particular in curriculum design and implementation in Ireland, and which has been significant and acknowledged as an impact case study, which could be accessed in the website. But in this presentation, I won't just focus on the curriculum and design piece, because that is captured in that one. But my goal will be just to conceptualize and critically analyze the complexities of research impacting, in particular, teachers' pedagogy. And to achieve that goal, to get there, I will focus on these three main themes. And the first one, to conceptualize research impact and identify what is the status of educational research literature in relation to impacting teachers' pedagogy. And the second one, to unpack the process of knowledge mobilization and as a core concept in the process of research impact as well. And I will finally finish showing some of the evidence of our current projects and the initiatives that we've considered just to maximize the impact on teachers' pedagogy, but also on the wider community as well. So generally speaking, impact is conceptualized as an effect or a change or an attitude, awareness, capacity, policy, practice, etc., and of a community, organization, of individuals, etc. That could be teachers, obviously, could be included in there. And, you know, the dominant perspective, and one that I would like to challenge in this presentation, is represented in this sequence. And in the top line, you could see how a researcher is gathering, analyzing and disseminating findings in two main outlets, in a research academic journal and a podcast. And in the bottom line, you can see how teachers are engaging with the podcast and are translating some of the key elements, or some ones that are useful for them into their own research practice, and we can see that apparently the students are more engaged and learned. So we know that the reality is a little bit different. It's more complicated, because there are complex processes happening or not happening to translate research findings into meaningful pedagogies. And we, sometimes educational researchers, can blame ourselves of presenting our coordinate findings in ways that sometimes are highly disconnected with teachers' need, teachers' understanding, teachers' own reality, and which is obviously that is not an ideal situation for having impact, isn't it? So let me offer a quick look to the literature on research impact in teachers' pedagogy. And this work in particular from 2017, I think really nicely presents 3 ways of conceptualizing research impact on educational practice. The first way of conceptualizing research impact sees research findings as a commodity that can be accessed and used by consumers, like if it was a supply and demand relationship. What we know, however, is that teachers rarely use research, but when they do, they prefer research that is relevant to their day-to-day concerns, is easily accessible, and is understandable. And I think most importantly, it fits into their very busy agendas. So that is one of the first conceptualization. A second way of conceptualizing research impacts is research as informing decision making. And this perspective assumes that research is used to support pedagogical decisions when there is a clear choice in between different alternatives. So, for example, they are very popular comparative studies where class A and class B are getting a program or an intervention. And this kind of research normally finish with some implication for practice. And those are, the ones that teachers normally are using to inform their decision making. And then a final perspective sees research impact as assuming it is similar to the previous one, but this one assumes that research findings informs teacher thinking. And from this perspective, educational research provides some kind of warrant for actions or reference points for decisions and practical toolbox that can increase teachers' technical knowledge. And I think more importantly as well, can enhance their practical wisdom and reflection. And I think that's a really interesting point as well. So I think, as I said, this is all very important on a conceptual level. But however, there's one point which is not considered, and because what we know is that it's generally easier to share knowledge across boundaries and boundaries in between research and practice. And when the groups involved, and in this particular case, we are talking about researchers and teachers and researchers, when they are shared goals, when they are similar ways of understanding things. And again, we know that the reality said that that's not often the case, and teachers and researchers tend to have different priorities, speak different languages, as we presented before, and value different type of knowledge. So I think making those connections is not as simple as it sounds, and that disconnect helps to explain why so much of the research stays within the academic circles and doesn't land, in this particular case, on impacting teachers' pedagogy. So the real challenge is not only about producing good research, and I think we can all agree on that, but how to move that particular piece of research beyond the research community and finding meaningful ways to embed those findings into resources, tools, etc., that are relevant to teachers and their everyday teaching. So one question that we may consider is just, so how do we move from educational research that only stays in the academic space and that cross that boundary, that breaks that silo and transform, or at least has the potential to transform teachers' pedagogy. And this is where knowledge mobilization comes in. So knowledge mobilization should be seen as a relational process. It's a social practice that involves collaboration between teachers and researchers. And I think this is really important because, as here, this is in those spaces for collaboration where the opportunities for translating or for making sense of the research knowledge, it really happen, isn't it? So, and we researchers and sometimes do not consider the value of these spaces. and for a number of reasons, and they are all very important. And I may not focus on the reason in particular, but we may touch base on those if you want at the very end. So in looking at the literature, we can see knowledge mobilization not as a single event, but like a journey with 6 different key stages. And in the first one, the research is shared, as we saw before, with teachers, and then teachers really need to understand what the research actually really means. And once they do, if they do, they may start thinking about using it into their own work, and that requires some effort. And from there, some of them may begin trying out these new ideas to inform their practice. And a final stage, it will be impact, number 7 in the slide. And when those practices are leading to real improvements in teaching and learning, or whatever the outcome is, because we can define impact in from different angles, depending on what we really want. And this one in particular is improving teaching and learning practices. So from the researcher side, the 2 most powerful strategies in relation to potential for impact and knowledge mobilization are implementing and co-creating processes. And I think the word is so important to highlight the word potential, because there are some mechanisms, there are loads of variables there that we researchers and teachers cannot really control, but they are there, and they have an impact, or they may condition that impact is really happening or not. I think they could be defined as the catalyst for impact, and I think they are not normally included into the equation of impact. We're just looking at research findings, but we may forget about other variables that are also making a contribution there. So implementing means going beyond disseminating the theory. It's about creating concrete tools, procedures, support, teaching strategies that really help teachers to put those ideas into action. In co-creation processes, teachers and researchers work together from the very beginning in that particular research. And in these processes, research is not just something done for or to teachers, but it's something that is done with them, which is a really important distinction, and is done with them through processes of collaboration, dialogue, mutual learning and understanding, and which I think is a critical term and change, because the dominant discourse is just, research is leading and the whole the show, if I may use that term. So building on the idea of co-creation, I think it's important to look at how collaboration between teachers and researchers really happens. And because there are some hidden power dynamics in there, isn't it? And so in particular, when the researchers are leading this process, and because that is normally shaped by academic goals, by an academic agenda, and researchers in that process are only invited to, teachers in that process are only invited to contribute. So sometimes we can say that these processes are a little bit tokenistic, and as the real voice of teachers is not really heard. They are there, but they are not really contributing to that process of research and impact, etc. So on the other hand, when the teachers lead this collaboration, that power dynamic could be reduced. It's always there, and it depends that it played out or not, depending on how the whole process is organized. But what I would be suggesting is just before starting any co-creation process, we need to discuss and agree the expectations, the role, the possibilities, and what are the different functions and roles that the different actors will have. So for teachers, being part of and contribute to research and related decisions in relation to purposes, procedures, data collection, etc. I think those are critical to start creating a personal and professional disposition towards that particular piece of research, which is a precondition of impact. So I think those processes are so important. And so I think for me, if I may, this is the elephant in the room, because it is not just access to evidence. It is how teachers make sense of the evidence. And this requires thoughtful processes and sometimes subjective interpretation that goes beyond, different filters like existing beliefs, experiences, everyday realities. So there's a whole complex journey from the research finding landing into teachers impacting pedagogy, isn't it? And I think the power of filters and existing beliefs and day-to-day practice, they are huge in relation to making this impact to happen or not happening. So if we aspire for impact, I think this is a critical piece, because it's essential that we understand how pedagogy works and how research must consider these processes of making sense and use of knowledge. And this is, for some, tacit knowledge is the sine qua non for creating research impact, and most of the time is overlooked. And so tacit knowledge, as you know, is the kind of understanding that teachers often cannot easily explain, but it's there, it's constantly there, and it's being used more or less consciously as part of their own decision making. And you know, I think let me tell you at this point that this is a critical piece of the art of teaching. And we are just thinking about making impact on teaching. So we really need to understand, as I said before, how pedagogy works and how impact and research should consider this tacit knowledge and the implicit and the inherent in when we are just planning for impact, etc. So there are two ways of facilitating this process of making tacit knowledge more visible. Externalization that entails translating what research normally unconsciously do into words, images, infographics, videos, etc. And then, you know, in ways or frameworks that can be discussed or shared, and visual case studies will be a really nice example. And in socialization processes, this is about learning, this is about sharing experiences, and it involves the exchange of tacit knowledge through peer observation, through communities of practice, through training days, etc., etc. And I think externalization and socialization are two processes that in the Sport Pedagogy Research Group we've been investing quite a lot of time, because we know that they really matter. And that is bringing me to the final section, in which I'm going to share with you some of the current research projects that we are doing, and hopefully making justice of my previous section before. So, for instance, in the FISET Academy project, which is an Erasmus Plus teacher academy that involves 6 different institutions from 6 different countries. So a number of teacher educators working together with the school teachers and the schools. So the purpose was to co-create teaching resources and to enhance teachers' pedagogy. And what we did there is just to work in communities of practice, so nothing new, but they're so important. And the co-creation process involved a series of theoretical and practical workshops, and all followed by discussions in relation to, you know, what is the best way to use this piece of information in different contexts. So those conversations really happened there, and also we kind of put a lot of effort in creating videos, audios with tutorials for teachers in terms of best ways to engage with research, and a similar process, the one that we follow in the Justice CD project, and in which the purpose was to develop and disseminate and social justice approaches across PE teacher education programs. And in this case, the toolkit that we have co-created was thanks to the work of researchers and pre-service teachers through communities of practice as well. And, you know, in the toolkit, we purposefully avoided the very theoretical content there. And we use instead shared testimonials, different outputs from teachers, from pre-service teachers, from teacher educators, and also infographic audios, videos. And we also organize a launch within EHS colleagues, and as another opportunity, again, like this one, for researchers and teachers to discuss the toolkit and ways that it could be used. Finally, in the SADL project, we are very particularly proud of our visual case studies and that we have co-created, and they are they are a really important part of our externalization and socialization processes. And for instance, we were quite proactive in approaching the National PE Association with these visual case studies, as you can see some of them in the slide. So they are very provocative. They all include some guiding question prompts. And what we are going to do with this, and we have a number of them, we are going to organize a workshop with teachers just to discuss, okay, how can we best use this? And again, it's just creating the space for that conversation of happening, just to facilitate that flow that I mentioned before. It's really complicated from the research finding into meaningful pedagogies. So we actually have put all of them into a website just to make them more accessible. So the thing is, to what extent these co-creating processes for translating research findings into creative resources, to what extent this is really activating tacit knowledge, to what extent it is really impacting teachers' pedagogy? Well, the reality is that we don't really know, because at the end, this is a very subjective thing that is very difficult to measure or control under our research situation. But let me share, and I'm really there to share some key performance indicators with you and in the slide. So, for instance, the Fisher Academy project involves 7 different countries. So the mini teaching paths have been shared and have been pulled together to create a CPD, a continuous professional development program, and 200 teachers have been registered. But again, they have been registered, but the step into, there's a big one there. But at least there's, I suppose, good interest. The JusticeCD toolkit, more than 2,000 views, a number of downloads as well. The SATEL website, more than 3,000 visits from 10 different countries. And we've been quite proactive too in approaching colleagues and international institutions to disseminate the toolkits and through newsletters. And we submitted the visual case study to Online Resource Bank as well. They've been accepted. They are there. They are shared in Zenodo as well. And they are going to be part of the EUPEA, which is the European PE Association, as another opportunity to discuss them. So this is a work in progress, and there is a whole lot to do more. But let me give you with a final thought, maybe a take-home message that you may consider in linking back to my own presentation. I think we could do better. When I say we, I say researcher. We could do better in relation to aligning needs and finding those spaces to do together with teachers and reimagine educational research as being more co-creative, relational, dialogical, and creative, as hopefully we are. At least we think we are, but hopefully I think that's the way that we are doing. And again, that this will be my final one. Let's consider as well that there are more variables that are affecting impact and the way that teachers are teaching, and sometimes are not considered. So thank you so much for that.